Happened? Oh no, it froze. Thanks.
Board Member Howard.
Yeah, I
the other
froze.
people, they're in.
Hold on.
So whenever you're ready,
I
it's on
froze.
you.
Oh, we're back. Good. Sorry, my computer froze for a second. Of course, and everybody's coming in. Good morning. Great to see everyone. Thank you for joining the April Board of Education District 1 Community Coffee virtually. I know we have more people coming in right now, so I will slow down a little bit, but I want to go ahead and get started to respect everyone's probably busy Friday, even though, yes, it is Friday. I appreciate y'all being flexible with pushing this meeting back a week this month due to spring break, but definitely want to keep with the practice of holding it once a month. So I'll go ahead and run through some updates that I'd like to share at the beginning of the meeting. And then, of course, want to hear from you all. And Keith will go over the ground rules regarding questions and the time for that. So we had our board meeting on the 10th, which would have been this past Monday. And we did a progress monitoring report for goal number 3, which is exciting. It's the first time we have had a monitoring report for that goal, which is that the percentage of high school students who graduate prepared for their next step, as demonstrated on a multidimensional assessment based on the profile of a graduate, will increase from 72% in May to a percentage to be determined in 2026. This is clearly a developing goal with developing interim monitoring goals. And the big thing that we got to hear about was the profile of a graduate and the characteristics that make that up. And a lot of credit goes to staff who's worked really hard to put together the profile of a graduate. So the profile of a graduate consists of several characteristics. I'll run through them really quickly so you all have an idea. I also sent out an update with this information, and if you're not on my mailing list, let me know. It includes self-reflective and globally connected, fully engaged learners, academically prepared, resourceful and driven, critical thinker, and skilled problem solver, and self-directed and goal-oriented. So these are all important and great attributes or characteristics that we want our graduates to have, but it is a lot. It is a lot to progress monitor. And it also makes the board think about this goal because we're the ones over setting up the goals, which we then give to the superintendent and team to determine metrics and ways to measure. So again, props to them for working so hard to come up with a way to measure this goal and create this profile of a graduate. And the input that was shared and outputs in this progress monitoring report were really insightful in many ways. A lot of the information was subjective based on surveys and how students felt about their experience in high school, feeling like they wanted to come to school, feeling like they belonged. A lot of that information is hugely important, and we definitely want to receive that so we better understand the realities for our students and how we can best support them. Also, there was some really important quantitative data around course passing, course completion, and beyond completion, also passing ELA, math. It was around 87% for both of those, which is great. SAT and ACT was closer to 20% for meeting the benchmarks. And then milestones was around 47% for proficiency. So looking at that data and kind of comparing them side by side was really insightful. I think it also helps us think about like, what are we really going to be intentional about in terms of supporting to make sure our students are best prepared for whatever pathways they choose when they graduate. Yes, college is a pathway we want to fully support. Also career certification around so many job opportunities, especially now when there is a shift from some four-year colleges, considering the cost of college too, and also how are students even coming out of college today prepared for the workforce, and knowing that we have great need in so many ways for so many different areas of career paths that we don't have the workforce skilled to do yet. So this goal definitely gets us thinking about how we are truly innovative and looking at best supporting our students for life after high school. And again, it is a goal that's further developing, so stay tuned and bear with us some. But I hope we can even hone in more closely on how we best align our resources with the needs students have to be prepared for career and college or whatever pathway they choose when they leave here, and looking at what the realities are in the workforce today. So please read my update if you got it. If not, let me know. I'd love to send it to you because I give a snapshot of some of the questions I asked. And of course, you can find this progress monitoring report in Assembly and go to the board website as well for information on our student outcomes focused governance. Additionally, just want to touch on a couple of things real quickly. I did mention a very brief recap of our March 23rd board work session. We got an update on FMP and some proposals around potential uses for the 16 or some of the 16 properties that have been deemed excess. They focus on affordable housing, which I am hugely supportive of, but there's still a lot of questions there, and we'll be receiving additional information from the administration soon on that front as well. And I think even more importantly, and I know more importantly, because our work is focused on improving student outcomes and students, we had a very productive conversation, and that is the board and the superintendent, around the resetting of the baseline for our goals and potentially resetting of the targets. We decided to reset the baseline, which needs to be done because of the pandemic and the impact to students and everyone. But it was very clear that the board did not feel that they could support resetting the targets. Those targets are high in comparison to the baseline. However, we all know that we cannot lower the expectations for our students, but we've got to do it in a way where we are aligning our resources with our goals that we have set around literacy and numeracy proficiency in particular, as well as college and career preparedness. We've got to hone in and set the example and the tone of supporting that work. This is not a hammer approach for the district. This is about shining a light so we know the realities for our students, and also making sure we're steering those resources to best supporting, making sure our students can read, do math on grade level, and the best approaches to make sure that happens. So there will be a follow-up to that work session in May or June. So stay tuned for that, where we will finalize the annual targets for goals 1 and 2. So please continue to follow that process. It's extremely important. It also points out that we need to go back out to the community and really talk about our goals and guardrails work so that the community is well informed about that, because the goals reflect the vision and values of the community. And before we know it, we have to go back out to set new goals and guardrails because they basically end in 2026. So that is an update there. FMP update, I know there'll be some questions, so I'll just quickly say, clearly everybody got the information that there will be no rezoning for the upcoming, or it had been the following school year, for any of the schools that were deemed overcrowded. I'm happy to answer questions about that, but I'll just say I mentioned that in my report as well, or my update. And we also have a board commission meeting, a budget commission meeting on Monday, the 17th coming up. Please tune in, follow this closely. We have not adopted the budget yet. I am adamant, as I know my colleagues are too, that the budget needs to be aligned with our goals and guardrails and our resources. So we will be getting an update from the administration on how they have worked to align the budget with those goals. And also, some trimming that was definitely needed, because there was at the time of the proposed budget, I think about a $66 million gap. So tune in on Monday. There's also an audit meeting at 2:00, and that will be to receive the update financial report. And there's also a board work session on the 20th. Is that correct, Keith? I'm doing all these based on memory, which is amazing. So I could very well get it wrong, but that is one of our training sessions. So stay tuned for that as well. So with that, that's a lot of updates. Thanks for being patient, letting me run through those. We will move on to questions, and Keith, I'll let you go over the ground rules, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Yep. And so happy Friday. Good morning, everyone. We have reached public engagement, communication this morning. So as always, as Waukesha has already done, we just ask you to please raise your hand so that we can add you to the queue, and we will try to address everyone's question who has them. We do ask that you get directly to your question. Again, we only allocate an hour for a community meeting. So if you could just please try to wrap it up a little bit for us so that we can hear from everyone, that'd be great.
Appreciate it, Keith. Oh, and real quickly, sorry, Waukesha, good morning. We have people from the district on the call. I just want to give a shout out. I apologize. I should do that first and foremost. B. White, we have Carolyn Barnett, we have Travis Norvell, my fellow colleagues, Erica Mitchell, Tamara Jones. I see Keisha Copeland, yay, family engagement.
We also have board member Johnson on the call as well.
Great. Sorry, Jessica, there you are. I apologize. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you all. And if I missed anyone, holler. But thank you so much for being here to help support and answer any questions as well. And with that, Waukesha, good morning.
Hey, good morning. I just have two quick questions for you. What is the mission and vision of the community, or what the community gave to you guys to move forward with the goals and guardrails and all this? What was that, if you can remember, or anybody else can help? And two, now that rezoning is off the table, what is the protocol for checking people addresses, and how will that be done in a way that people don't feel that they're being discriminated against?
Great questions. I appreciate both of them. So not to take any onus off of me, but I was not on the board when the board went out to the community to hear from them and help determine the goals and the guardrails. I don't know, Erica, if you want to say anything right now. I know Erica is multitasking this morning, so she may not be able to comment, but definitely, that work needs to be done in a more consistent fashion to check back in with the community. Clearly, I think it was received that the community definitely wants to make sure that students know how to read on grade level, that they're proficient in numeracy, and they want to see their graduates to be successful. But exactly how that was conveyed, I would have to get back with you with any documentation that exists from that engagement exercise and period. But I'm looking forward to us going back out and checking in with the community now. And then of course,
right, because isn't that part of the process? Like it should be engagement throughout the year, open dialogue between the board, the community, to check in to see that the goals and guardrails. And before you answer the other question about addresses and rezoning, I haven't seen AJ, y'all coach. Is he still around?
So AJ is not our coach. He is doing a lot right now, but we are in the process of getting a new coach. I know we're checking in. There are several people through the Council of Great City Schools who have been trained as coaches, and we're fortunate to have those folks. And I'm actually going through a cohort myself on my own, and I have a coach through that as well. And I meet with that group twice a month, and it's really intense training, which is awesome. So I'm sharing some of that back with my colleagues as well. That's been really helpful. But through that as well, it becomes ever-present reminder that we have got to have a coach help us practice this work, because it is a continuous improvement process, and no one has it perfectly, and that's not the goal. The goal isn't to be perfect at it and check off the boxes. The goal is to be intentional about the work that's focused on improving student outcomes. So stay tuned. I'm looking forward to us getting a coach and having work sessions where we really dive in deep with them, and they can help us certainly as we come up excuse me, upon getting closer to going back and out to the community around our goals and guardrails, that would be tremendously helpful. So stay tuned for that. And then in terms of the rezoning off the table, I'll just stop there. I mean, clearly the superintendent did not make a recommendation around any of the proposals. Yes, there's a residency audit happening for Midtown right now. I've been asking questions about the residency audit for Jackson. I know Travis is on the call. Travis, could you share any information about those two processes, please?
I'm speaking about not Midtown. I'm speaking about Jackson, because I did get word that in the Jackson cluster, King is starting to check certain students addresses and telling them that they should be going to other schools. So it's not just happening at Midtown, which we know is overcrowded. It is also happening at Jackson. So is it just the 3 clusters that's overcrowded? Is this something district wide, or what is the process? Because we don't want people to feel like they're being targeted, and people are picking their addresses. Is it certain kids? Is it all the kids? Like, what is the
It should
process
be.
for
I
that?
mean, Travis can speak to the specifics, but yes, Jackson was definitely going to have a residency audit as well. That has been a part of the plan from the beginning. Midtown and Jackson, due to, of course, Midtown's overcrowded and Jackson's at 100%. So, but Travis can speak to the process.
Good morning. I'll try to speak and not overspeak for Corey, but we can also make sure Corey.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Travis.
No,
Share what you
but
can.
I'll share what I can. So there is residency verification is consistently always happening as part of enrollment in schools, and so all 8th graders entering into 9th grade must re-register. And so that would be what's happening at King Middle School as part of registering for Jackson High School. Re-registering is required. This review that Corey Edwards' team is doing is a more intense look beyond just students entering the school, but existing students as well. I put the link into what that process looks like. Because it is labor intensive on kind of staff to reach out and review every kind of family members that fall within that age range, they can tackle basically one at a time. So they're tackling Midtown first, and you'll see the timeline in that link, and then Jackson, Woodson Park, kind of as it goes. So you can find the timelines on that link and the process, and they are very aware of the negative impact that residency verification could have and lead to kind of finger pointing, and are trying to create a process that is more of APS, let central office handle a lot of the work with individual families, rather than asking, people to start calling each other out, which has happened in other districts or at other times. So they're very aware of that potential impact, and are trying to create a very clean.
Okay, thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you for sending out the link. I'll make sure to get that as well, so I can share with people when they have questions. Thank you so much. And thank you for those questions, Waukesha. All right. Who's next, Keith?
We have Dion. Good morning, Dion.
Morning, Dion.
Morning, Katie and others. Thank you for doing this again. I'm sorry, my voice is about to go out. I really appreciate yesterday's board development meeting and the items that were discussed. I think that's been a long time coming, and really appreciate the thoughtfulness and effort that was put into it. Couple questions related to some of that stuff, and I just want to highlight a couple things that you brought forward, which have been some frustrations for community members and probably employees. The questions that you guys submit and providing the answers and some sort of effects and frequently asked questions or board questions that you talked about yesterday, yes, please make those available. Would greatly appreciate that. I'm in those documents that describe student governance, and I think that would be very helpful to the community. So Keith, Pierre, however we need to make that happen, we would definitely appreciate that. I think that would help with communication. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. The calendar you spoke about, that it's only 1 year out, and in fact, it's almost done, right? We don't know what it looks like next year. We haven't reviewed any of the guardrails yet. Some of our goals don't even have goals finalized. And to your point, and Erica's and Tamara's yesterday, we're almost at 2026 and the end of this process. So, you know, I believe Keith or Pierre said yesterday, we're building the plane as we're flying it. We can only say that for so long. We do need to start wrapping some of these things up. And I do appreciate the conversation yesterday in recognizing that we need to start finalizing these things, because we don't even have goals finalized and we're coming on the end of this goal. And we're going to be going out to the community and asking them for new ones. So what is the ideal? I know we can't always do ideal or perfect, but what is the ideal timeline that other school districts are doing, knowing that new goals, a new plan is going to have to be established? You know, you mentioned we're going to have to go back out to the community, teachers, and others, families, to reset these goals for the 2026 plan. Does that plan go up in June 2026 or December 2026? And what would be the ideal timeline to start engagement on that?
Great questions. And just to give a little background for folks who did not listen to the board development meeting yesterday, we had really good conversation about ways that board members can share questions that are more tactical and technical around the progress monitoring report for the upcoming board meeting. And best practice is for those questions to be put into kind of a repository that the public can see. And also board members need to send them to the superintendent so far in advance of the meeting to allow the superintendent and team time to respond to them. And again, this is a developing process. We're not there, and that is okay too. But best practice would be to do that. But either way, sharing those questions so that the public can see them. There's some transparency in that, because there isn't enough time during the progress monitoring session, during the board meeting, to hear all the questions. And that questioning time should be more around strategy versus like what went into the input and output for this data. So we had some conversation about that, and Pierre and team are awesome in working on a way to create something like that on the board website. I also want to say I'm really proud of us for doing this work. Not every board of education is doing this throughout the nation. Many that are, you know, struggling through some things. It's a learning process. You know, you try one thing, doesn't quite work, you got to pivot and adjust. So it is a lot of work, but it is the hard work that's required to improve student outcomes. And this type of work is proven to do that. In terms of the timeline for going back out to the community to reset goals and guardrails, I'm still learning about that process, Dion. Having a coach will be helpful to help determine when we start going back out in advance of these goals and guardrails ending. And yes, I recognize that we have not monitored some of our guardrails, and we need to do that, but we also need to be thoughtful and make sure that we are measuring them in a way that gives us information that we can work off of. So it is work that's done in collaboration with administration. And again, people have worked really hard to set up these measures and metrics. And it also, again, forces the board, as it should, to rethink how they set goals and guardrails going forward. If some of them get so voluminous, is that really getting us the information we need to make decisions that best serve students? Or is it using so much staff time that they're not able to work on some things? So it's a continual process, but stay tuned. We will definitely be putting information out, particularly about checking in with the community. I look forward to that work happening for sure come the beginning of next school year, where we go out as a collective to hear from the community so many times a year. So I anticipate with that type of engagement, us talking about resetting the goals and guardrails going forward. So I'm gonna stop there because I know people have other questions.
Can I just have one follow-up question regarding student governance? Are we using the superintendent evaluation or some combination that's associated or given,
We're
provided
using
as
a
an example with?
combination. Yes.
Okay,
We're using
so
combination.
according from the superintendent's contract, her goals for the upcoming year have to be set by September. So this all aligns. Are we all on track this year to have all of these things lined up?
You and I can have more of a conversation about those specifics, but I will say with the superintendent's contract and our goals and guardrails, based on my understanding, that did not exactly align. So don't put those things, merge them together exactly. That
Okay.
contract was put in place before everything was put in place with goals and guardrails, and having even a year to go through the process, which we haven't done a full year of progress monitoring. So the evaluation right now is a combination, but certainly taking
Okay.
into account the goals.
So just because we don't have the goals and guardrails finalized doesn't mean that we can't get her the goals according to her contract set by September as stated in the contract, so that you guys can do the evaluation by the October for the following, all of that stuff lined
Well,
up.
let me be real clear. Our goals and guardrails are set. And we wanted to give a full year of monitoring goals that aligned with the evaluation.
With targets?
Yes, our goals with targets, everything that is all set. The guardrails have not all been monitored, but our goals are in place. I mean, we have adopted the goals in our guardrails. We just haven't monitored our guardrails. So just want to differentiate between those things. They are set.
I thought the one that was just presented does not have a target yet. And in your newsletter too, it says to Y percentage. I thought those aren't all finalized
That
yet.
particular goal is in development, but we've actually adopted the goals. I mean, they're in place, but that actual target, that one is in development, but the others are
Okay.
not. So
Okay, thank you.
diversity and numeracy are set. I mean, in terms of the targets too, but we have adopted our goals and guardrails, so technically they are in place.
Hey, and I'm sorry, Katie, this is Pierre. I do want to just,
Pierre.
hey, Dion, so the newsletter, we didn't have a target by the time the newsletter came out during that time frame. But to Katie's point, we do have them set now. And those targets should be on our website.
The newsletter
I'll
was
make
sent out
sure-
last
I'll
night.
go back because in looking at the report that was shared, it was not filled in, which is something that needs to be addressed, Dion, for sure. And this is just
Okay,
round
thank-
3 with the profile of a graduate, which is a voluminous goal. So yeah, happy to have a more in-depth conversation just on goals and guardrails at another time too. All right, Contisha, I think you're next. And Keith, I know that was a long.
Yep,
question and answer session.
yep, she's next.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm in my car. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, you're good. Good morning.
Good morning. I was wondering, is there a partnership between APS and MARTA where we could apply for a lower reduced rate for Breeze cards? Because we have some parents at our school, I'm at Benteen, that are having some transportation barriers to participating in things at the school. And some of them have like job search requirements, and they may lose their housing or lose some of their benefits. And they're just having problems with transportation. So our social worker has actually been going into her pocketbook and helping people out. And I just wanted to see if there was a way that, if there was a grant we could apply for, or if there was something that I just couldn't find on the APS website that maybe the social worker could apply for to help the parents, or maybe I can guide the parents, because I don't mind doing that. But I'm just trying to help them get transportation.
Great question. Keisha, do you know of any program with MARTA? I mean, we should have one. If we don't, we need to work on that for sure.
Good morning. This is Keisha Copeland. Thank you for the question. I don't know of a partnership right now. We used to have a partnership with MARTA, but we are also working with an organization that is providing, it's a small amount of MARTA cards for us to distribute to schools and families And so I will touch base with them today to see if we can get some cards over to Benteen ASAP. But we will be circling back around with MARTA.
Thank you so much. Because we had a parent meetup this morning and I had a good conversation with our social worker and with our parent liaison, and that was a big need. And I told them that, you know, I knew that the meeting was coming this morning and I would ask. So that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Fleming. And I'll just put my email address in the chat. If you can email me, I can go ahead and send some information over to you, as well as getting some cards over to Benteen.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keisha. And when you have that information, is that something that could be included in Family Engagement's page so that people can easily access that? And
Yes.
however we can support, because I know MARTA's had many programs, especially for students. So we need to make sure that that happens. Thank you all.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for the question, Clintisha. Appreciate it. All right. Who's next, Keith?
All right, so we'll go back Waukesha, and then we'll go to Whitney after Waukesha.
I had a
Hey,
quick question. Keith, maybe you can help me with this. Have you guys checked into the solution of why certain people can't send emails to the district or the school? Because I know I was trying to send an email to a principal with some resources and my email couldn't go through. So have you guys heard about that?
No, I haven't heard anything about, nothing has been brought to my attention about people not being able to send emails. And you should, I mean, I can check into it and see, but nothing has been brought to my attention about emails not reaching schools or having errors and all that kind of stuff.
Waukesha, can you put that in Let's Talk, please?
Yeah, and let me do some investigation around what's going on with that.
Yeah, I want there to be documentation and Let's Talk as well, Waukesha.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think I did, but I'll do it again.
If you could do it again, please, and you can copy me.
And send it to the board, Waukesha.
Okay.
And just, I know Board Member Howard, because you've called out Let's Talk, please use it because not only will it help keep track of it for us, but oftentimes it allows multiple people to see what the issue is. And like, for example, I look at the district-wide, all of our Let's Talk to look for themes, common challenges, things like that. So the more that we can use that instead of just individual reaching out, then the better we can kind of tighten it too.
Thank you, Travis, because that is important. I treat it like the city's 311, put it in there, please. So we have record, and like Travis said, we can hone in on things that may need some additional support. All right, so who's next, Keith?
Whitney.
Hey, Whitney.
Morning.
Hey, how are you? Good
Good,
morning.
how are you?
Good. Thank you guys for
Morning.
doing this again. Katie, I appreciate you being willing to talk to your constituents, and I know you and I are planning to talk offline. I appreciate you being willing to do that with all of your constituents. And I know this isn't the place to address specific situations, but I want to hear from the board around how safety and security needs to be addressed. There was an issue at Howard this week that is very disconcerting, and the response from the principal and the individuals that were supposed to be helping with that has been very disconcerting. So I just want to hear, generally speaking, around safety and security, what we're doing to ensure that our kids are safe. And then if and when there are incidents, how do we support the families and the parents whose kids are afraid to be at school, quite
Mhm.
frankly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you and I are going to talk more in depthly about this particular incident. I think it's always important for families to have conversation with their principals, first and foremost, around particular incidents, because each one is unique. And, I saw the response from the principal at Howard and team, and I really appreciated their quick action, as well as, also, most importantly, when it comes to things like this, our public safety department, as in APSs, in coordination with APD, they work very closely together because, as everyone knows, but I will remind us, APSPD, their jurisdiction is school property only. APD is clearly everything else. So they work closely together to address situations which unfortunately do come up. Again, you know, in terms of concerns and fears around particular instances, which involve, you know, individuals and conflict, or whatever the situation may be, there are resources connected to schools that can be used around conflict resolution, restorative justice practices, which our PD is very familiar with and focused on and trained in as an APSs. So all those resources combined, there are the right people who can come in and work proactively and unfortunately reactively to address situations. So you and I will have further conversation about this particular situation, and I hope to help support you and direct you further. But I really encourage everyone to always start with your principal and the APs and those who are addressing the situation, who are working actively with our APS PD and others to address unfortunate situations that come up. But we do have resources in place to help support, best support. And if, you know, principals and APs need to be able to reach out to the district for sure for those supports, but Chief Applin and others are very responsive and very good. So, and I have seen them working very quickly to address situations that, again, unfortunately arise. And I definitely pay close attention. So you and I will talk more about that particular instance, but that's my response in general. All right, who is next?
We don't have anyone right now. I think we're
Oh
doing.
my goodness. Okay, and I saw in the chat since,
Okay,
I know, Anthony, did you have something that popped up in the chat? And Sita?
I'm sorry, board member Howard.
Renard, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
Good morning, board member Howard. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
And thank you for addressing me as Mr. Johnson. I do appreciate that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I brought this up at a previous community meeting, and I know that Mr. Gaither and Mr. Glass are on the call, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
They are.
Yep.
There are two board policies. Board policy BH-E1 for domain V, domain 5 rather, attend and participate in regularly scheduled and called board meetings. In addition, you have a board policy of BBBA that states we will be on time and prepared for meetings. Mr. Gaither, Mr. Glass, as I mentioned before, one of the guardrails of a voter towards a board or towards any elected official is their attendance and their votes. And it's my understanding, as I have browsed through several, more than one board meeting on your website, and it's come to my attention that every board meeting does not have a vote tally starting with roll call, the approval of the agenda, down to the adjournment. Mr. Gaither advised me to send him an email as to what I thought was missing. Well, here's my response. It is not my job to make sure you have quality assurance for your vote tallies. That's not my job. That is the job of the administrators of the school board. So my ask is, started on January 8th of 2018 and work your way forward. How long would it take for your staff to go through these meetings to ensure that there is a vote tally for every agenda item that should have a vote tally?
Yep, and so we would definitely need to do some more investigation. I can't give you an answer as to how long that'll take. But I do know that Pierre and I could definitely just go through and make sure that whatever, like to your point, should have a vote tally or some type of board action on it is there. And so Pierre and I can definitely work on ensuring all of those information is there.
And also, shouldn't every agenda item have someone who made the motion as well as someone who seconded the motion, correct?
Correct. If it requires that, yes, it should have. It should happen.
And also, any matter that comes out of the executive session of which you all have to vote on a legal matter, each of those should have a vote tally, correct?
Again, yes, if it requires it, yes.
Okay, when did the school board convert over to Simply?
I think it was back in 2019-ish.
Was there any type of quality assurance done to make sure that everything was correct?
Yes, we have an ongoing communication with Assembly, and actually we have someone upstairs who works directly with the Assembly team to ensure all of the everything transition over from board docs over to Assembly, but it's an ongoing process. There may be cases where something may need to be go back and investigate it, but for the most part, it's an ongoing relationship that we have with Assembly just to ensure that whatever's supposed to be there is still there.
So in other words, are you saying to me that there was not any quality assurance done when the transfer was done?
No, it was definitely that from the beginning. Again, because board docs was the system we used for a very long time. I'm speaking very premature about this because I wasn't as engaged in the whole transition from board docs to Assembly, but I do know that everything, majority of the things were transitioned from board docs over to Assembly. Again, I would need to do more investigation. I think Mr. Gaither can speak to ensuring that everything is there. But there is a way that we could definitely reach out to the Assembly team to just ensure that whatever's supposed to be there is there.
Okay, my last question is this. Are the records that are on the website for your meetings and the vote tallies, are these just images like a PDF image, or is this database intuitive for you to do any type of queries? Are you able to do queries upon this information?
Yes, you're saying investigating of the missing items that we're supposed to have?
No. In general, are you able to do a query, for instance, are you able to query, say, a roll call for a period of time?
I don't think you can get that specific and just only for roll call. I don't think the system allows you to only just look at roll call sheets and.
Well, I'm only giving that as an example. For instance, are you able to query any of these vote tallies? Let me ask you that.
No, so you can't just filter on vote tallies. You would I think you would have to just look at the entire meeting. So whatever, you have to go to that specific meeting that you're referring to, and then you'll see all the information and votes that is from that meeting. But it's no way for you to filter on just attendance or vote records in general for all things. It would only be for specific.
So in other words, this information that's here is not intuitive. It is just a dumb record. There's nothing that you could query upon it, correct? It's like just an image, correct?
Yes, I think so.
And Mr. Johnson, we can follow up with additional information about Assembly. Appreciate your questions, and we're definitely all about transparency. I know that Assembly is used by many board of educations throughout the nation. So it's definitely a trusted system, but we are happy to follow up with information about exactly what you can find and how you can utilize that system. But yeah, and I do want to hear from some other people who have questions. So
okay, no problem.
But yeah,
we'll definitely
we'll certainly follow up and give you more specifics.
My concern is this, though, as a normal voting person here in the city of Atlanta, I would expect this system would be 100% correct. There should not be no 89 or 90% accuracy in terms of vote tallies or the information on this database. I would expect to go into it and see it to be accurate. And right now it is not. And that's problematic.
Okay, well, we received that question and we'll follow up on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it up. Appreciate it. Sita, I want to speak to some of the things you put in the chat. And one thing is about saving the chat and the information. Keith, I'm happy to help you on this, but is there a way, like the link that Travis sent, some of that information that we could send out to this group that registered for this meeting? When you send out the recording? I know it's hard.
I will grab all the links and everything and add them to the email and send them out to everyone.
Awesome. You're the best. Thank you so much. See that, yes, we are very familiar with the bill the General Assembly passed allocating a certain amount of money to all school systems for safety and security. Based on my understanding, that is more for like concrete physical measures, but we'll be learning more about that. I don't think that's actually, I mean, I guess a school system might be able to use it for personnel, but it's not that much money and it's a one-time payment. So I would think that'd be for more concrete measures, but you know, unfortunately, we're in a time in our country where we have to be thankful for funds to be able to make those physical improvements to our schools. Which I will just personally say concerns me and upsets me all the time that we can't take more action to prevent people from having weapons that we have to take some such measures to prevent someone from coming to school and doing something. That has to be such a focus. So I'm hopeful the General Assembly will start thinking about that side of it. Anyway, moving on, but I appreciate you bringing that up. But yes, Erica Long has done a phenomenal job as always in representing us at the state level and has given us some really great reports about the bills that were passed, which of course, and the money that has been allocated for education, which is not enough. But we are thankful for the $2,000 raise for educators and some other things, including the money for safety and security that will be coming to school systems. So, and Sita, I also want to say that, you know, you were appointed to the Equity Committee, which thank you for your service. And Stephanie Flowers was my appointment. So excited about those two individuals, or the two of you doing that work. So appreciate you all doing that. Let's see. Dion, I know you have a question, and Anthony, you had some stuff in the chat. I don't know. I'm having a hard time going back to it. If you want to ask any of those live, if you do, feel free to. But yeah, for now, I guess, Dion, another question. Anyone else, Keith?
No, I have a question. Good morning, board member.
Good morning.
I just wanted to know if, you know, I've been asking the board for a long time just how the meetings are structured, and if it could be more community facing. So the community is always sitting way in the back, the board meetings, the district staff, and there's like 7 police officers there at the whole time. So it doesn't feel comfortable and safe for community to be there. So really asking the board to really reconsider how those board meetings are structured, to be more community facing, so that more people can engage.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I would love to hear what other systems may be doing around their legally required board meetings and things that are required legally by state law and other requirements, charter, what have you, around the meetings we have to hold to deal with legally required business too. Of course, I'll bring up again us going out into the community and doing that jointly to specifically talk about our goals and guardrails and hear from the community. So, but I would be interested to see what other systems do. If you have any information around that, I'd be really interested to see what some adjustments have been that have proven really helpful. I'm all about the openness of our meetings and the opportunity for the public to see the work we're doing, and to obviously provide comment and feedback. It is not, though, a time in that particular instance in meeting to have back and forth. But there are other opportunities like this, and again, for us to go out collectively with through a community engagement plan to have that back and forth conversation. So appreciate you looking that up.
No, the board doesn't have a community engagement policy, right? And nor does the school district, right? So I think that there's a lot of
we have a policy that does mention community engagement and requirements about what individual board members do, but it's not a collective. You're right, and that's what I'm working on with my colleagues on board development, in creating that actual plan. so that we go out into the community on a regular cadence. With no less than 3 of us is what I'm proposing. And it would be aligned with our student outcomes focused governance work, which is a requirement of that work, to go out and check in with the community on a regular basis around that work and hear from them. So
Yeah, I'm saying besides a check-in, right? So like these people elected each of you to do a certain number of things to get kids what they need. And to say that you are struggling to decide a plan to go talk to the same people that you go beg for votes at a certain time of the year doesn't feel like there's a reciprocal relationship between the voter and the school board members. And if you are struggling to figure out who go talk to community members for 5 minutes in ways that are inaccessible for the regular person like myself, I'm sure it's inaccessible to many other folks, right? So I think it's hard to hear that you all are struggling so hard because you all are everywhere all the time at parties and galas and all this other stuff to go talk to community members who need to interface with you all.
I wouldn't say we're struggling. I think each of us is doing our own level of engagement, which is great. Like I do this.
And is it enough? The question is it enough?
Oh, and I agree. It's not enough. And I wouldn't say we're struggling to figure out the community engagement plan. We're just working on that aligned with our student outcomes focused governance work. And that does take the feedback and input of colleagues. So that is a process, and developing that larger community engagement plan, which when we go out, it needs to be the most bang for the buck. Like we go out in different quadrants of the city, we need to make sure we can have staff there. We need to make sure it's at a place that people can easily get to, public transportation, parking. We need to have childcare. I mean, these would be really big meetings that we would reach. We want to make sure we're reaching a lot of people and make sure that we're going to the people who have the hardest time reaching us for whatever reason, that no, are not coming to board meetings because they don't have that flexibility. So that's why it is taking longer to create that plan, because when we do it, we need to make sure that we're doing it in such a way that we're really reaching the people who are hardest to reach, not that we're just checking a box. So I'm with you 100%, but I also don't want to take away from my colleagues doing the work they do in their communities every day and reaching out in so many different ways where they are meeting their constituents where they are. So I want to be really clear about that, but I am looking forward to us putting together a set community engagement plan where people they have the expectation we will be there so many times a year in a certain format that people get a lot of information at one time. But that's going to take work, and that's what we're doing right now to make sure we do it in a way that's really meaningful and productive, but that we don't go out and have like 5 people show up or even 20 online. That's not a good use of anyone's time. So hear you, look forward to you partnering in the work. So get ready. Yeah, and some best practices around how people adjust actual board meetings. I would be very interested to see, because I haven't seen anything different than what we do, but I'm definitely open to learning more. So thank you. I know we're running up on 5 till. I don't have an exact hard stop at 10, but I want to respect everyone's time. Dion, I think you're our last person with a question right now. Is that correct, Keith?
That is correct. And then after Dion, we'll go right into closing remarks from you, Board Member Howard.
Cool.
Thanks for allowing me a second question. You mentioned kind of streamlining some of the things that we're doing in terms of plans that have been rolled out and workload and professional development for teachers. And I greatly appreciate that. When does central office think that they will have that streamlined information ready for school level administrators so that they can start planning for next year in terms of their professional development, just knowing the workload on the teachers? We're just hearing a lot that teachers are pulled out of the classroom for different professional development that's mandated by central office, and the time that is carved out on special days that kids are not in school is monopolized. So just wondering if we're going to get that information from central office in time enough to make adjustments for next school year. And I know some of our school principals are doing professional learning and paying additional teachers over the summer. Do you know, is there a deadline for that information to be coming out? An example is, will MAP be done 3 times next year? Like, just knowing that answer can help kind of wipe a third of that paperwork involved off the table. Because as you know, and I've reached out to you and many other board members, we have a proposed school-based solution that's currently in policy and legal to add additional asynchronous days at Howard Middle School and additional half days for students. And if some of these things we knew were taken off the workload for teachers, then that might provide us with a different path.
Yeah, I mean, you asked obviously a lot of questions in that, and I appreciate you focusing in on the support for teachers and how, like, our strategy around professional development. And also the MAP testing and the schedule for that. And there's been a lot of feedback, which has really come from looking at our progress monitoring reports too. I mean, clearly all those questions need to be addressed by the administration. I do not know a particular deadline, but you know, these are things we can additionally lift up as board members to the superintendent, that there are a lot of questions around professional development in particular. I am going to be interested to see what comes out of the budget meeting on Monday. And that should, you know, show some strategy around that work as well. I think it would also be awesome if we really make sure we're tapping into our own talent around professional development, and our educators who are, you know, doing things in the classroom that are really producing great results, and how we further expand upon that. And there's definitely been conversation. I don't know where that's landed, but certainly that's another way to make sure we're supporting our own talent, and allowing them to share what's working, that's to be evidence behind it, with others within the system. So, I mean, I expect to see that from innovation delivery, and that information, you know, obviously being put into a strategy by the superintendent. So there's clearly more to follow on that, but I appreciate you lifting all of that up, and, you know, pay attention on Monday. And then, yes, I can include much of what you said and feedback to superintendent, and I'm sure my colleagues on this call will as well. So thank you,
I
Jan.
appreciate that. We're just not seeing that the timelines of urgency are kind of matching, to help alleviate some of the stress and workload on teachers, students, and community members. So I'm hoping over the next year, we see some of those timelines are a little bit more thoughtful for everything.
Yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I'm just flipping through the chat real quickly to make sure I didn't miss anything I need to comment on. Thank you, Tamara, for responding.
Board Member Howard, I'll share one timeline just on how it works. It is very difficult to do school planning with school leadership teams during school. So this summer, there's a leadership retreat that's held in mid-June, where principals, assistant principals, leadership team, central office all come together and build out plans, both school plans for the year, as well as central office kind of department plans, as well as get professional learning from kind of a leadership perspective. So my assumption is a lot of that kind of annual planning will take place when we all get in the same room this summer.
Thank you, Travis. So you have the experience and expertise more so in that area, so I appreciate you sharing that. And thank you all for the feedback again on community engagement. I am 100% about using that as we move forward and creating our board community engagement plan, which again does not take away from any individual board members' engagement. And yeah, I see your specific requests in the chat, Anthony, and board members Jones and Mitchell, and I can take that back to see, you know, how those adjustments can or cannot be made to meetings. Appreciate that, that specific request, and all the others that are in the chat. I appreciate Keith too, following up as you can with additional information from this meeting. Oh, and thank you, Mr. Johnson, for pointing out AJ Crable's book, Great on Their Behalf. I've been reading segments of it. If y'all want to take a deep dive into student outcomes focused governance, purchase that book. And certainly encourage you all to look into it more. And there is information on our website for sure about the work we're doing specifically around student outcomes focused governance, which each board does obviously pick their goals and guardrails in collaboration with community. And we have always more work to do in that regard, particularly. So appreciate you all being on the call today. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay tuned for a lot of things going on next week. And as the school year wraps up, certainly enjoy these last couple of months of school with your students and community. And look forward to seeing you all in May. We'll be back on schedule the first Friday of the month. And of course, if you're not getting my newsletter, shoot me an email or Keith, and I will make sure to add you because I go into more detail around specific things that I'm focused on. Thank you as always to all the great, awesome APS staff who are on this call and for the action I know they're already taking in response to questions that have been brought up. So appreciate you all so much, and everyone have a great weekend. Take care.
Have a great weekend, everyone.